So today on the big show, we're of course talking 420, legalization, marijuana, pot, your tax dollars at work, all that good stuff that you can't get, well, without a prescription, of course. Yes. I am the host of Crash Talk, Chris Crash Jesus Taylor, and I'm with you here on through the night. Yes. I'll just go until midnight or something. No, I'm kidding. It's a 90-minute show, damn it. And I keep getting email, actually, at producer@htlaradio1.com. Thank you. Wanting to know where the Crash Jesus name came from. I've been accused of everything from starting my own cult to being a reverend in the state of Ohio. And to clarify, because I must clarify, Crash Jesus, actually kind of a funny story. We, back in 2010, is of course when we launched HTLA Radio 1, and in 2010, you know, I was like, oh, hey, cool, I'm going to host radio shows, right on, okay, well, that's about the only thing in my life I haven't done, aside from brain surgery, so, yeah, why not do that, okay. So I was goofing around one night, I'm doing Google searches, checking out radio studios and gear and people and watching, you know, different radio personalities working the magic, as it were, on the microphone on YouTube, all that kind of stuff. I was doing my homework. And, well, I don't know. I just came across radio names. I did a search for radio names in Google, and it returned a whole bunch of things called random radio name generators. Yeah. These are websites that you go to, and you know, the things is, you know, enter your full name here. That's all it says on the entire page. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I put in my Christopher John Taylor. Boom. There you go. And the random radio name generator did its, 20 seconds of thinking and came back with my radio name, which, of course, was Crash Jesus. Now, I don't know where that came from. I can't tell you. They, of course, have their trade secrets for how they put together these random radio names, but that's what it came back with, and the good old wife happened to see that and laughed her butt off for about an hour and a half, and then told me that was it. That was my name. So so ever since then, Crash Jesus. Yeah, that's the the radio handle you can find me at. So that's the there you go. That's the story once again on Chris Crash Jesus Taylor, right there for you. But the show tonight is, of course, about Mr. Weed. Yes, marijuana, the green stuff, the 420. Aye, laddies, let's get high. Just before the break, we were talking about some Canadian statistics in regards to consumption and age groups and all that good kind of thing to kind of give you an idea of where I come from. And, when I was a kid, I would probably say that 3 or 4 out of, back then, back in the old days, we used to have classrooms of about 25 kids. Didn't have none of the 60 kids to a class thing. We didn't. We had like 20, 25 kids in a class. There'd be a teacher. There'd be a teacher's aide or an assistant teacher. And that would be just some, kind of hippie-ish guy or girl that sat around the back of the classroom and helped us with art projects and the like. But, that was the classrooms in Canada back then, 25 kids, all happily learning, everybody getting the attention they needed for their education, which is, part of what made me such an awesome man that I am today. So there you go. And out of those 25 kids in a class, that would be your class. You'd be with them through the year and, of course, go up to the next grade together. And, seldom, sometimes you'd have a couple of kids move away, and sometimes you'd have a couple of kids move to our neck of the woods, and there'd be a new kid or two in class every year. Yes. And, so, that was good. It was good. But, I can tell you pretty much any time that I thought about it or wanted to, I could pretty much figure out 3 kids in the class that I'd be able to get some weed off of. Either they were selling it themselves or, this was really cool, some of them had parents that grew it and wouldn't even sell it. No. Yeah, we'd just go by their place. Oh, yeah, dude, here you go, man. Far out. And they were, hippie parents. That's what you get. You get hippies, man. Free love. And they were giving the love free. And hey, who was us not to take it, right? So yeah, we grew up on pot. It was no big deal, and I don't think I'm suffering any mental collapses from smoking it. Of course, let's be fair. I wasn't just tooting on the stuff 24/7 either. There, of course, were some kids that I grew up with who did, and yeah, I'll grant you they got kind of dumb, kind of dopey, kind of lost their personalities, and you kind of didn't talk to them anymore because there was just nothing to talk to them about because they were always in their basement getting high, listening to Pink Floyd, The Wall, or Dark Side of the Moon, or indeed the Alan Parsons Project. Yeah. So, yeah, that eye in the sky, looking at you. Yeah, I can blow your mind. I had my nights up in the grandstands listening to Pink Floyd, The Wall. You bet. Higher than a kite? Absolutely. But as a lifestyle, as something I had to have, no. In fact, for the longest time there, I guess between the ages of, I'd say probably 14 and not even much past 17 or 18, Friday nights, Saturday nights, you could find me, drunk and stoned somewhere at somebody's party having a good time. But a way of life? Smoking a bowl Sunday morning? No. Got to do it Wednesday afternoon? No. I guess I would be what you call a recreational user. And yes, as I've kind of alluded to, there were people that went to excess on it. Yeah. And, but you see, here's the thing. They got doped up. They hung out in their basements all the time. They didn't really go out. They didn't really talk to anybody unless they were with somebody who was just as stoned as they were, so that they could kind of relate to each other, because the stuff that they were talking about was just like, what? It was like, what? But, yeah. So, take that for whatever it's worth. But, I said when we got back from the break, we were going to get into, of course, the darker side of marijuana. And this came when I told you about 40% of Canadian cannabis being produced in British Columbia, where I'm from, and 25% in Ontario and 25% in Quebec. Interesting kind of historical facts here you should know. All right? There was biker gangs back in those days. Yes, I'm talking the early to mid-'70s. And, of course, they weren't too organized. No. They just kind of rabble-roused their own towns. Groups like Satan's Choice is a fine example out of Kingston. They pretty much stuck to Kingston and Toronto and did their dirty deeds and lived that, Sons of Anarchy biker life, and that was pretty much it. They weren't running guns from Ireland. They certainly weren't running drugs from, Colombia and any of that kind of thing. But when pot came around in, those roaring 60s, and then subsequently into the 70s, of course, the biker gangs, they're all like, hey, dude, yeah, we always got weed. And they did. And you could buy it from them, but it wasn't their main source of income. No, they were out doing armed robberies or home break-ins or any one of a million other criminal things to get money. Pot was just kind of that consumable that was always around. It's like a pack of smokes. It was really no bigger of a deal than that. And so, what you had was that. Well, then in the mid to late 70s and into the early 80s, of course, well, our good brothers to the south, the good old USA, yes, I'm talking about the Hells Angels, they reared their ugly heads. And what did they do? They went rolling north, gang. Yes, they did. And they hit every one of those little unorganized biker gangs, and they either patched them over or they killed them. Now, interesting fact here. Between Ontario and Quebec, there had been ongoing biker feuds for, well, decades, since the 40s. Reason for this is because of that whole separatist thing, that whole French-Canadian, we hate you, you bastard Canadians. And the Canadians like, F off, man, go away. Yeah, so they've never liked each other back and forth. And of course, in Quebec, they had their bike gangs too, right? Well, Hells Angels came and kind of steamrolled over all that shite. They just kind of dealt with that. Yeah, enough. We're patching you over. You're part of the HA, or you don't get to live anymore. So, as you can imagine, most of them patched over and became Hells Angels. 1% affiliated. Yeehaw. Well, of course, with that came what? Well, it came organized crime. Yes. No longer were these little bike gangs seated all over Canada, all individual and doing their own little thing. No, now they were this network brought together by the bigger network all through the United States. And what do you think happened then? Well, I'll tell you. Cocaine, machine guns, you name it, all the bad stuff started coming up to the Canadian border. Yeah, we started getting all that good stuff. Yes. Machine guns, 40 mil grenade launchers. Oh, it was fun. Yes, it was. It was highly illegal, quite highly wrong, as it really changed the whole biker culture up in Canada at the time. But, well, what do you do, right? When you live in a shoe, you carry on. And BC, having 25 or 40% of Canadian cannabis production going on, of course, BC was a target for the HA, and of course, they steamrolled there too. Yes, they did. And you know what? Now you can roll, pretty much anywhere they've got one. Find yourself a red and white store. Yeah, you're like, what the hell's that? Well, a red and white store is a Hells Angels affiliated boutique. Yes, you can go and buy Hells Angels wear. You can buy yourself hats and t-shirts and, pretty much anything else you want with Hells Angels logos on it. They're like the superstars of criminals now. There you go. But what did that do? Well, it polluted Canada with a whole bunch of problems that we never had before that, I'll tell you that. It also raised the stakes in law enforcement because now every one of these biker gangs were affiliated and networked and working together. And what did that do to the pot? Well, it didn't really do anything to the pot. No. Demand went up as the population went up, sure. And police have never really, in Canada, they say you got weed, so what? Unless you're trucking 50 pounds of it, heading for the U.S. border or heading for, Alberta or, going across Canada with it, they don't really care, And that was never clearer to me than one summer. I was hanging out down at the harbor in Vancouver. I was about 16. And, we were smoking our weed in the park there, having a good old time. Just smoking them, as we walked kind of thing. And some bike cops came by. Yeah, they came riding towards us, and I'm like, oh, shit, we're done. Because they're riding fairly fast. They're coming at you about 15, 20 miles an hour. You're on foot. You're boned. So I was like, we were smoking our stuff. We were, hauling our ghetto blasters on our shoulders and playing, I don't know, Billy Idol or whatever the music was of the time, maybe Quiet Riot. And the cops rode right by. And the funny thing was, my friend Scott had just exhaled a whole bunch of weed, and one of the cops, heads kind of flew through the cloud as he rode his bike past us. Did not even turn around, didn't say anything, nothing. Just they kept going. Yeah, it's summer. We're all having a good time. Yeah. And then I was like, wow. Oh, this is so cool. Oh, right on. Let's have another one. Then we did. The police had bigger fish to fry, if you get my meaning. But of course, this country's not quite like that. When they find what? Wait. Most states, if you've got, a little glass pipe, or if you've got a bomb